But when we get to the business part, we really talk about transformation. So they have to envision, say I make 30,000 and I want to make 60,000 a month. Well, what I am selling is not a system so much. I'm selling transformation. So they say, I say, what does it look like moving, even 15 to 30 or 30 to 60, whatever it is, right? Even let's take 15 to 30, something lower. Well, with 30K, that means I can hire a VA. I can hire a good video team. I can take these things off my plate and I can concentrate on my clients and grow my clients. That's the vision they see. And we already have clients that do conversions a lot higher than that. And so we are not really selling systems, although systems is a big part of it. We're selling transformation. And if they can see the outcome, you don't have to give them all the details, but they see the outcome, you can convert. And so that's what I provide to my customers and clients.
Quick favor before we jump in. It always surprised me that a large percentage of people who listen to the show regularly haven't yet subscribed. If you're a commercial real estate operator, investor, or builder who values conversations like this around deals, capital, and technology, please take 2 seconds and hit subscribe. It's a simple, free way to support the show. My commitment to you is that my team and I will continue bringing you higher level operators, stronger conversations, and real execution level insights every single week. Thank you. I truly appreciate it. Welcome back to the AI Edge podcast, where we have real conversations with operators, founders, and builders who care about what actually works, not just what sounds good on a slide. Today's episode is about why most outreach doesn't fail because of effort. It fails because of systems behind it is broken. My guest today is Troy, founder of Troy Agency, creator of Skoop, and someone who's spent years helping founders, consultants, and B2B teams build multi-channel relationship systems that convert without burning trust. This is not about hacks or scripts. It's about structure, consistency, and keeping the sales human at scale. Troy, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. To be completely honest, I got into this field because I have an IT background. I got into the field because I had to, and I had to learn how to build relationships. So I don't know if you know many programmers, but a lot of us have kind of alpha mentalities, or we're not the friendliest people all the time because we're a little internal. And I had to learn real quick on how to build relationships because we were doing really well in Atlanta, Georgia for our gamification company. But then the whole world flattened out and we got blocked from the agencies we used to get work from. So we had to figure a way out to generate business. And someone told me about LinkedIn. And at the time I was like, what, the LinkedIn, the resume place? What is this, right? And I didn't know that you had to really build relationships, and I was really bad at it. And so we realized you can have systems in place that what we're talking about, but you also have to take a slow dating approach sometimes. And like in real life, if I, the way I was before, and it's a bad idea. If I saw this beautiful woman, I would just go up to her, and it's too much. It's too much too fast. And often just because, she looks right, she may be a terrible person and it will cause havoc in your life. And the same thing is with businesses. When you create systems, you should create a system that builds that relationship, that kind of slow dates businesses. And so I think those are some of the key things I learned. We're really good at systems, but I tend to think 10 times faster than the average person just because I'm in that field. And most humans don't think that, they cannot take a lot of information in at once. They usually have to think about one thing at a time. And that's how normal humans work. And generally speaking, you're dealing with normal humans. Just because they own a business or they're doing something, they're not the experts at what you do. So if you have a service and the service solves a problem, they have to clearly understand that. And sometimes they have to understand that over time and in simple methods, because you're the expert and they're probably at third grade level because they're not dealing with the things that you're doing all the time. They're experts in their area. And so that disconnect causes a lot of friction and a lot of lost relationships and sales.
Troy, how did you go from creative and systems work into building relationship driven sales engines?
Well, yeah, like as I mentioned, I was forced into it because my business was suffering. Because I used to get phone calls that, Troy, you're the gamification guy for this, take this project. I just get a call from New York or Chicago or somewhere in Georgia. And again, the world flattened out. And then most of the agencies start fighting for pennies because those agencies were getting cannibalized by the Fortune 500 companies, at least here there in Georgia. And so we had to get around it. And so when we created systems, we realized really quickly that, of course, the slow dating stuff is important, but there's usually not a silver bullet. It's not like one technique that really, and so we had to realize, so, well, where are they? And then where do they respond? And then where do they engage? And of course, you have like old fashioned networking, which is really great. You may not have time to always go out, but that is a component to build relationships up front. And that should be part of your systems. But as far as LinkedIn is concerned, you have a lot of great salespeople. They don't know how to navigate LinkedIn. They don't know the possibilities. But like I said, there's not one method. You have to use several methods together and overlap those. Say, for example, if your LinkedIn profile is not up to snuff, they don't understand what it is, you're going to get less connections. And if you're not having a campaign or it's not very specific to your ICP, your ideal client profile, if it's not in line with them, then you kind of look like a flea market. And so you have to design that first domino, that first bit, which is your LinkedIn profile, to attract the right people, to increase the acceptance rate on your connections. And then you have things like, well, if I'm outreaching, who am I outreaching to? Am I using things like Sales Navigator to do that? But are my searches really optimized or not? And I can get into that. I'll have you pull questions out. I don't want to get into the nitty gritty of that, and then formulate these campaigns. What's another major channel on LinkedIn? It's content. And a lot of people don't know how to work the content. They don't know how to create the content. They can do the videos, but they have a hard time formulating those ideas, and they don't have systems. And when I say system, it's not all automated AI type stuff. A lot of those are manual processes to drive that business and figure out of those 100 likes and those 40 comments, is there someone in there that I should be talking to and to either pull in as a potential client or a potential partner? How can I do that? And they simply don't know. They miss out on that. The other thing is some of the stuff you're doing here with Riverside and this interview. I have a show. And so having events or podcasts and setting them up properly, all those things work together. And then once you have an event, you're usually able to pull things like opt-in email. And people think email is dead. No, email is probably still the most important channel, especially if they're opt-in. And let's look at these numbers. So if you build an opt-in email list, there's several ways to do that. Every meeting I have, they have to opt into my list, And so I have permission to email them, in other words. If they have an event, there's a registration for the event. You get the emails. Of course, you clean it out. And you build that list of people that are interested in receiving information. So I don't know how much the conversion rate is on cold email, but from what I've seen on my opt-in email, it's 35 to 75% open rate on a per message, not overall on a campaign. If you think about that, and of course the click-through rate's much lower, it's between 1% and 3%. But if you look at that and you get an active live email list opt in for, say, 10,000 people, you have volume on your site. And if you have something to convert, you have a much better chance of converting it for people who actually like you. And so all those channels work together. And someone says, well, events is the best way to do it, or this is the best way to do it. Well, let's take an event for an example. If you have a monthly event or weekly event and you bring people in, you may have a high ticket offer. Let's say I have one and it's $15,000. So my high ticket offers, I build all those systems that we just mentioned for 3 months. We start getting traction within week 2 and I increase your business. So my last client is rolling off of that program and he's tripled his business in 90 days, right? And so, but those systems have to work together. So if you don't have a team, I build you a team. And sometimes the teams are just VAs, but they have to be trained properly. You have to create the SOPs, the service operating procedures, the training documents for those people so they can perform. So they don't have the knowledge base that you have or for your service. So they have to understand how to handle that. Just because it's common sense to you, it may be voodoo magic for them, because it's just not known. And let's take an example, an event. Most of my events, if I have one a month, I get between 200 and 1,000 people registered on it, right? And it's just using systems. So there's no extra cost. We use a system that reaches out on InMail if they're interested. And then we have VAs go to it and invite X amount of people from the LinkedIn page. So LinkedIn has the ability to do a LinkedIn Live or just an event or Zoom or whatever, right? Just one of the channels to do that. And so we had one event and we use this as a case study. It was 300 people registered. Out of that 300 people registered, 47 people showed up, right? Which is pretty normal, right? It's pretty decent number. It's not great. And then we have the event and we talk about transformation. Don't want to get too much into it, but there's a certain formula that converts. And you get the people excited and they're interested. And then we get 2 book calls on the meeting. The CTA, the call to action, is if this is something that you need or whatever the case may be, and you need to talk about your business, and it's in the realm of this, we're open for a conversation. We get two not great numbers. So what is the chance of converting those 2? It's pretty low, even though they're qualified, they're self-qualifying. They see me on the content before and all this other stuff. But when we talked about email, that opt-in email list goes in after 5 days for 5 days. So after 5 business days, you have email each day, right? So you have total 5 emails. We have 37 people more interested. And then out of that 37 people, 5 actually booked. So we have 7 book calls.
Amazing.
Now the numbers are in your favor.
Better.
The chance of closing a deal is about 20% at that stage. We were able to close 2 deals in an a la carte, like a partial deal. So I made 30K. I made 30K that week. And so people say, oh, this works really good, but it's not just the event. It's the emails that went behind the event. It's the content posts that talked about the event. It's the outreach for the systems that brought people to the event. So those systems are working together in order to drive that business that's going to help with your B2B type of product. And when we're doing that, it works great. But that is what we call consulting money. Consulting money is a lot of work. And there were some gaps in there as well. And we said, can we fill that gap with a new software that doesn't exist? And so we built that software as a component of the larger system, but it's a commercial product. And so that filled in some gaps. And sooner or later, this revenue stream is going to be different than consultation money. It's going to be called what we call wake up money. And so the name of the game is get multiple income streams in if they run very close. So if they were separated, if they were different things, it would be a lot harder. But because I build software anyway, and I build systems anyway, I might as well build my own software and system that helps other people. And so that's my thought method in order to increase the relationships and sales through multiple channels. Now, feel free to ask questions on the nitty gritty, the relationship stuff. I just know that we're kind of short on time and I don't want to tangent.
No, I love it. Everything you talked about was super valuable. What did your early agency and expertise work teach you about how people actually buy?
Well, I'll tell you this much. I am not a bona fide salesperson and I will never be. It's not within my DNA. So instead of creating a sales kind of environment, I always believe in creating a buying environment. So when you create a buying environment, they come to you. So when you provide value, say these meet and greets, you want to create your value structure at least in 3 tiers. So tier 1 is free value. Tier 2 is low cost. Tier 3 is your higher end deals, right? So let's talk about free. What's free? Well, you invited me to this interview for free. So it's knowledge that I may learn about you and vice versa or whatever it is. So that's free. My posts are free. My meet and greets, I have so many slots a week for free, right? And so when I meet someone, say on a meeting, and they grab a 20-minute slot. They want to get to know me, but more than often they have an issue and they say, well, you're kind of a LinkedIn guy in systems. I'm not sure you can fix this. And my job is to solve the problem regardless if I get paid or not. So say, oh, you having this problem. Let's just say it's an email issue. Yeah, we're sending emails, we're not getting anything back, this and that, or whatever. And so it might be deliverability, it might be a frequency, it might be, all these different issues that could happen. They just may not have a great business, you don't know, and you figure out like, oh, if you have an email issue, I understand that these are the typical issues that happen. I'm not an email expert, but I've been around email long enough. Well, maybe you need to talk to this person to fix the physical problem because I may not, and it's okay. I'm not the all in and be all, but my job is to lower their pain, increase the trust factor, or even solve a problem if I can't. So this is what happens when you solve a problem. One of three things happen. Number one, they'll never talk bad about you. That's really, really important, right? Because I don't have the best personality, so I don't want people. It affects your business negatively when they're mad at you or whatever, right? It doesn't matter who is right or wrong, right? And so you kind of want, and then number two, if they do what you say and it lessens their pain or solves that particular problem, they'll look at their business and saying, you know what? Troy's right. And I got 22 other problems I need to try. I'm a higher Troy now. So you've already increased the proven method in order to get business. The third is they may not be able to afford you, or, they just don't want to for whatever reason, right? Well, you can ask them this. You say, well, did this work? Are you happy with this? Who would be a good person to run an introduction to us to? So you can pull their ticket and ask them for recommendations. So what happens with recommendations is it's 10 times more valuable than you finding it yourself. Because if the other person is tooting your horn, it's much more valuable to the prospect than you tooting your horn because they're coming from an already trusted source. And so it's really about creating good habits within those systems. So I'm providing that value. And now that's tier one value. Tier two is low cost. Well, for me, it's my Skoop software. It's under $50 a month. So I usually ask, how much is a client worth? Definitely worth more than $50 a month. And so if they use the product properly, they can increase sales. But if someone gives me a little bit of money, they're giving me some attention. So they pay me $1 to give me $1 worth of attention, right? And so you're bringing them within your ecosystem. Now they're paying more attention to your product, to your processes, to your content, and then they can elevate to a higher end of service. Now, this works really great, but I need to build a team. I need to build a process. I need to build a system, and I need to increase my monthly from 30K to 60K really quickly. And I charge them 15K to do it. And well, if I work with them, it will work. But I don't take on clients I know that won't. And that's another thing on business. Even though you need the money, sometimes it's better not to work with certain clients that they're not going to be successful. So if they can't make their meetings, for example, if they can't close their deals, and stuff like that, it doesn't matter what system you have, it's not going to do them any good.
Love that. At what point, Troy, did you realize that customers or clients were really having a problem scaling outreach by brute force because they were using more DMs, more emails, more volumes? Why does that almost always break down?
Yeah. So, first of all, I had some problems on my own, and one of those are picking the right client. So we had before $1,000 a month service and 2,000, 3,000, that sort of thing. And we were discovering that we were attracting a lot of people, but the $1,000 a month didn't cover the $10,000 a month issues. So that's really important. So even my 15K, it's about 50K of work. I do it very quickly because I've done it many, many, many times. So I can run through it pretty quickly. But if they think it's too much to pay, they're just the wrong customer. So that's one thing we have to resolve in order to help it, because if they don't pay enough, then they're going to get suboptimal services. The other thing is that most of these companies, they just have very bad habits. So when I talked about having the right client, is not all AI and automation, although that's a big portion of it. They have to put in their hands in the cookie jar at some point. So if I work with a client, and one of the things I ask them to do is, you need 30 minutes to an hour a day to do ABC, and you need to block that calendar off to do it. And we'll create all these systems and we'll train your people to do, to make that happen. You don't have people, I will give you video people, I'll give you VAs, and then you can work a deal out with them after the 90-day period. And so the thing is, having those systems, having the right attitude, having the right value structure, and then having the right systems. So it's attitude, structure, systems. So when we say structure, the attitude is really, how can I help other people? It's not really about how can I have them buy my stuff. That's the wrong attitude, right? So it's not, you're not in a selling market, you're creating that buying environment. And so once you have that and you have the right systems, part of that is your content, part of that is putting out there for your brand, part of that is getting other people familiar with what you're doing, and then having them mentally take the baby steps. So let's talk about one aspect of that. And we'll use Skoop, for example. Say I have a 3% conversion rate on my welcome message. So I connect with someone on LinkedIn, right?
Yep. Yep.
And I send them, hey, a thank you message or a welcome message a day or less. You don't want to do it the same day. You want to give them a breather, right? So you don't want to do the next day or several days after. You want a gap. But then you think, I got to do another message, another message. Well, this is where automation is a good idea if set up properly. So you can use automation to maybe like their post or tell you to engage in the post, or wherever the system may be, to increase the conversion rate. You want a good profile and all this other stuff, so they actually accept it. Once you do that process, it sends a connection invite to your ICP, and you set all that stuff up, right? And they accept the connection. Well, what you can do is you can have a 5 to 7 day gap before you send the first automated message. And those two messages can be supportive based on the message you can do manually. So the reason you have 5 or 7 days is you're busy. How much time do you have? And so it gives you a little flexibility. But when I send a welcome message on Skoop, I already have it all pre-stored. So 80% of conversations are pre-stored. You start from a button and you click it on Skoop and it drops your welcome message. It puts their name into it, adds 3 lines of text. So a good welcome text is 2 to 3 lines. The reason why you don't write bullet points and all that resume type stuff is people don't read and it looks like spam. They just want to know, what the heck is this message about, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you can say that in 2 lines or 3 lines max. And so you click a button, it drops a welcome message. You can change it if you want. You can make it original, whatever it is. And then you do a video. Now, this method we're talking about is a sandwich method. And it's talking about putting a few minutes. I'm talking about 2 minutes. 2 minutes of time for a message to increase your conversion rate. So originally, when I sent a welcome message, I had a 3% conversion rate to a vetted book meeting. So I want to increase that, of course, right? And we have all these other systems behind it and all, but we're talking about this one little step here. Bread is a sandwich, more or less. So bread is context and meat is content. Content is different than context, right? And then the last piece of bread is also context. So when they see a message, it is all context first. So I connected with you, Luis, and I connect it with you, and I'm gonna send you a welcome message, and you read it, and you're thinking, what is this? I did connect, and they know I'm back in their lizard brain. They connected you for some reason. They may not know, right? But they know it's some familiarity with that, right? And so they see that, and they say, what is this? Oh, it's a welcome. Oh, that's nice, because we did just connect. You're helping them connect the dots, right? And they said, oh, we did just connect. It says, thank you for connecting. I made a video for you. And so that is a micro decision. One decision is accepting the invite. The other micro decision is comprehending that little bit of text. Underneath that text is a 30-second video, and it looks raw. It does not look polished. It looks like I made it just for them. It's, oh, did he make a video for me? And underneath the video is a title within the video thing that says, comma, thank you for connecting with me. right? So number one, they say there's a micro decision. Oh, okay, I'm getting it. I see a video is always moving in the positive direction, and know it's for me because it has my name on it on the bottom. And so that has increased my 3% to 21. I don't have enough fingers. 21% conversion rate on a single message. Now think about this. If you have a system, you should get about 10 connections a day. 10 from your system, 5 from your system, 5 from out, right? And 5 in, 5 out. So it's 10 connections a day. Well, 10. And if you get a 21% conversion rate, that's 2 and sometimes 3 vetted book meetings a day on top of all your other systems. So think about this. When I say pre-vetted, my welcome message just says, hey, Lewis, thank you for connecting with me here on LinkedIn. I know that you have this interesting podcast that talks about AI, really cool stuff. By the way, I created this AI software called Skoop. Love to talk to you about it if it makes sense. But one thing I do have is a really good network. So, Lewis, if you have a chance and only if you have time, take a look at my LinkedIn profile. Again, only if you have time. And if you see any dots that connect there, feel free to send me your booking link and I will schedule on your link. I'm always open for a conversation. Thanks a lot. And hopefully we talk soon. And so that is my actual video I do. And I have their name at least 2 or 3 times. I talk about them. I mention what I'm doing. And I have one call to action, one CTA. Just look at my profile. And I put a little carrot saying that, I have over 30,000 connections. They look at I have a really good profile. And they look at that and then they think, I do want to talk to them or I don't want to talk to them. And so if I do want to talk to them, they'll send me the booking link. And if they watch the video, my booking link's right there anyway. So if they don't have it, they'll naturally, and you're covering those gaps. And so you're putting the ball in their court and making them feel comfortable and in control. And people need to have that feeling of control and they need to pre-vet themselves. And so now you are starting that process of creating that buying, that open environment where their walls are not all the way up. They're kind of open to solutions or partnerships or whatever the case may be. And when they do that, they book a meeting at that high rate. And the AI part, I'm just talking nerdy stuff now, but on Skoop, Skoop, by the way, and the website Skoop app, skoopapp.com. But the AI part is on the content. So on LinkedIn, there are only 2 major places to generate revenue for the B2B environments. That's from your content and that's from your direct messages. Emails, events, interviews, newsletter, all those things are a derivative of those 2 channels. And so we solved the conversion rate on the DMs and we were looking at the content. I said, people don't know how to formulate words anymore. They can do the video, right? And they can do the pictures. They're really good at the picture. And some people do the PDFs using Canva, which is great, by the way. I said, but they have a hard time writing out the freaking post. And that's what the search engines are grabbing, right? And so we created Skoop to absorb your personality. It runs a disc analysis on you. It absorbs your profile. It absorbs your last 10 posts for knowledge. And it uses Gemini to fill in the gaps. And it will create posts for you. And it'll formulate it and it'll separate it in sections and bullets and emojis and all that stuff. And it will sound like you. So basically it saves you an hour.
Wow.
So when you so you just push a button, it'll publish all that information for you. And you just read it you spend 5 minutes instead of an hour, 5 minutes to read it saying, you know what, I need to create a hook for it or point 4 here. I would change it, the wording a little bit, whatever you want. And so it does that. And then we also added a CRM in it. And so it's just a video sales and relationship tool. And so those things, we're solving those issues for Skoop. And then we're doing a lot of cool stuff too, but I don't want to get too far down the rabbit hole.
That's incredible. So when it creates that content for you, is that video or is that audio when it uses your voice?
Creating content, when I meant by your voice, I meant your writing style. So it creates the written portion of the post. Yeah. And so you can drop your own prompts in there as well and to push it in certain directions. Or if you have maybe what they call talking head videos, you just take the script from that and then put it in there and I'll formulate a post around it.
What does it look like when volume starts destroying trust?
Yeah. There's a difference between providing value and spamming. And so this is what I always stop before I send anything that has volume. I say, is this helpful or is this not helpful? And I'm not saying helpful for me. I'm talking about them. If it's valuable, just use that word valuable. Is it valuable to them? Because what's valuable to me is like, yeah, of course I want you to buy my stuff. I want to work with you, but that may not have value to them. So when you send out volume, how much volume do you really need? For me, I can only handle a few clients a month for the consulting. So I rather get the good clients. I don't need so many, get one client, it covers me for the month. Plus I make money on Skoop. So I got multiple streams of income. And so I like steady work coming in and filling in those gaps. And just because someone says that they'll work with you, you send them an invoice doesn't mean they'll pay. And so then you have to re-examine if that happens, it's happening more and more, to get around that, you have to reevaluate your ICP. So maybe you outgrown the client and you need to go to companies that are a little larger, that have budgets already, make your life easier. So you have to be aware of all the channels that you're using, what's the appropriate tempo, like for example, post. I post Monday to Friday, one post, I don't post 3 times a day. And it's good for LinkedIn, you know, I don't get a ton of views. I get maybe 20,000 views a month on posts, 20 or 30,000. So the average is 5 to 8,000 views a week. But I actually create content that is helpful, that's human, and sometimes I talk about family, the human side, and sometimes I talk about functional stuff. But that's kind of my rhythm. So you have to have a rhythm of what's acceptable. Emails, if you have a large email list, it's okay sometimes to send out stuff. So if you have an event, you want to send out 5 emails, 1 email per day, not including weekends. So if you have an event on Wednesday, you have Thursday, Friday, then you have Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday to send those things out. They kind of don't want to, you need the rules to know not to bother them. But do I send out typically daily email blasts? No. It might be like once a week, twice a week at the most. And if you're sending out those 5 blasts, then you don't do the other stuff. So you want to keep that list safe, because if you blast them all the time, they'll just simply unsubscribe at a higher rate, you know? And so you have to figure out what that tempo is, how your business can absorb that. Do you want to get a lot of people interested and then can't serve them? You might piss them off, you know? And so you have to figure out that flow of what happens. Hopefully that kind of answers a little bit of your question.
No, that's great. A lot of teams are stuck in what I call spray and pray phase. Lots of activity, very little signal. What
Yeah.
are the warning signs that a sales or outreach system needs to be rebuilt, not optimized?
Well, the obvious thing is sales. If they're not making their sales quota. And then the second thing, in order to optimize it, is just re-examine your ICP and your business offerings. So there's usually misalignment with their or their ideal client profile. So they're not aligning. It happens to me because my service has changed. So I have to realign to companies that will have a budget and not burn my time. The funny thing is, I actually reduced the number of meetings, not increase. So if I had my gates open, I would have more than 60 meetings a week. Well, I have work to do. It's too much. And then you have to get rid of the tire kicker. So that's the first thing I do. And I have 3 methods that reduce the number of meetings. Number one is my booking link only has so many slots. So it no longer has open slots. So it's very specific on number of slots per time and that sort of thing. And so when you do that, I can't book more than 25 meetings, period. Right. The other thing is my LinkedIn profile, where they usually find the booking link and that sort of thing. It states on my banner and then underneath my name exactly what I do, how I do it, the conversion, who I work with. That by default tells you who you don't work with. So I work with B2B companies and sales environments that make at least 100,000 to 8 million. That's my sweet spot. So they're just starting out and they want this big program and they like, oh, am I qualified? They'll think twice before, booking a meeting. The third thing is on my actual booking link, I have a question on it. It's a yes or no. It's yes, I have integrity and I will show up. No, I don't have integrity. You should cancel this meeting, right? And if people laugh, I said, but that has saved me a lot of heartache, because if you're just like, I'll just book a meeting with him, and you don't know, he's like, oh, I'm making a promise that I have integrity. Maybe I shouldn't book the meeting. And so there's all these methods where you want to be in balance with your ICP and have that flow. So hopefully that makes sense.
That I'm probably going to add that one to my booking links. I like that.
Yeah, because you get Joe up there. Like when I had a gamification company, I would have the same issues. I would get a phone call. I would back then. It's 15 years ago. I would say, yeah, sure. Let's talk. And is yeah, can you make a game like GTA? Because we had a gaming company, and GTA is like a $200 million nothing we could do. It's a different thing.
Right.
It's like a Series A type of a AAA game and all that. And we used to make half a million into $1 million games, right? Or gamification type of virtual worlds and all cool stuff like that. We were even pulled in by Barbie for some consulting when they were big in that space. And so we made like 17, 20, I don't know, 20 different virtual worlds. And it was, really fun stuff. When I'm like, what's your budget? It's just like some guy off the street saying, well, I got an idea. And if it was like a little bit like this and this, and I'll have the idea and you guys can pay for it. They have no clue that it's a 200 million. So you want me to pay $200 million for your freaking idea? An idea is not the most important thing. It's the implementation of the idea. And so people don't know that. So you want to avoid those kind of weird time sucks if you can.
Fantastic. One thing I respect about your approach is that you don't just tell people to post more or DM better. You look at where they actually are. So how do you decide when someone needs basic structure versus when they're ready to scale a multi-channel system?
Well, you can do both at the same time. So this sounds a little mean, but I don't work with the client to understand their goals. But in order to keep the cost down, I dictate. So there's some negotiation, but it's kind of a dictatorship, because people like me and certain companies like me, we have the ability to see 10 steps ahead. So we don't have time. If we slow down, we charge for that time. So what they end up doing is getting a huge discount, and they implement these tasks, and they all need organization, all of them. I don't care. They all, because they just don't know. And then when they have that organization, they need to, within that organization structure, they need to hone their skills. So say, for example, creating content. Yeah, we create content on time. So content sucks. Like I just tell them that this is not good. I said, you need to post this kind of content for these kind of people. And then also how you write your post, you have to have an engagement. And then who likes and you have to understand that, hey, this is a good person to follow up with. This is not a good person to follow up with. And you have to have that understanding and I can tell 80% of the time from the picture and from the title. And if I'm thinking twice about it, I'll right click it and open the profile. And then if there are a good candidate, I'll DM, say, hey, I appreciate you commenting on my posts about A, B, and C. Yeah. So, we do this kind of thing. Let me know if it's worth the conversation. And then they say, yeah, I send them a booking link or whatever method you have, but you have to have a method that feels natural, that's not pushy, that goes up in there and saying, you're engaged with me. Does it make sense to talk about, whatever it is that we need to talk about? And so I think along those lines that most people don't have that structured approach, and they don't have the skill level as of yet that they need to hone in. And that can be done through training.
Talked to a previous guest, and one of his issues on LinkedIn is the fact that he's reaching out to plenty of people, right? Each day, I think Sales Navigator allows you to reach out to 25 people a day or so. But the problem is after he reaches out and after they say yes and they don't commit or whatever the case may be, he's not able to follow up with them. He gets bogged down. There's too many people to really handle. How are you able to figure that out where you can basically follow up with people or be able to keep track of all these people that you're reaching out to and trying to connect with?
It's a lot easier than you think. It's really about training them to block time off on their calendar. So if you have a meeting, you say, hey, I want to meet you Friday at so-and-so. I say, it has to be on my calendar. If it ain't on my calendar, it don't exist. Like that's how I think, right?
Sure, sure.
So if you have a problem following up, well, you have a process issue. So you need to actually block time off on your daily process, saying between 8 and 9, I'm checking emails and replying back on a normal basis. And then also you probably need to set up a some kind of CRM where you can set reminders. So that's one of the tasks. So on your day-to-day process, there could be 20 things you could potentially do, but I really need to do these three things. You know, determine what those three things are and block that time out. So if you say I'm bogged down from this and that, I did have one client years ago where it says, well, I can't do it because I may have another meeting with the client. I can't take the meeting. I'm thinking reschedule the meeting. And they're not used to thinking like that. And so those people that can't communicate, they're going to fail. So they have to have you have to teach them contingencies. So I got to meet with a client, and I got to meet with 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 Elgin, this guy here at that time. I need to have I need to build in some common sense or a process that says, hey, I'm going to ask him if I can move the time. Under what method does he respond to? Does he respond to text? Do he respond to email? Is this the type of thing you can move and have them accept it or not? If it's a meet and greet, sometimes you can get away with that. You have to understand that there is a process and there is a way to do that. If you don't have the ability to do that, then you're kind of in a world of hurt. If I can teach you that, you just don't do it. And so that's another thing is you want to select a client that's actually going to follow the instructions. If they don't and give excuses, then you can lead a horse to water, the rest. They're not going to do it. They're not going to drink from the stream. And there's no system in the world that's going to help them unless they structure that process. And sometimes it's not them. Sometimes it's their VAs or their EAs, executive assistants, or their BDRs, SDRs, or whatever the case may be. They need to understand, don't reply, thank you. Like, I think the worst reply is like, you just lost a client. What kind of reply is that? And some people aren't designed to be in that business. You have to have people that can connect the dots, and they have to be trainable. So is the client trainable? Is the team trainable? Yeah, hopefully that makes sense.
Troy, a lot of people lead with tools, CRMs, automations, AI writers. You lead with structure and intent. Why does that matter so much?
I think I mentioned it earlier. People work with people that they know, like, and love. If someone's going to drop 10K, 100K, $1 million in it, do you think they're going to drop it because of a piece of automation? No, they're going to drop it because they like you. 80% of the conversion is not your service. It's not your automation. It's if they feel automation helps, fills in a lot of gaps, but 80% of the decision to work with you is if they like you. Someone else could have a slightly better service, but they don't like them. And people want to work with people they like. And then the know and trust comes along with that. And so that's really the reason, that human connection.
What breaks when tools are layered into unclear messaging?
Oh, the whole system breaks. Everything is a chain. And if you have a broken link in the chain, it's just not going to work. It just stops right then. Also, even the replies. So I'll get people to ask me a question, and then I will reply, and they'll send me something like a question mark. I don't even reply back. Move on. Because if you don't understand what I'm saying, then we can't work together. It sounds kind of mean, my messaging is pretty clear. It's, hey, what do you have going on? Oh, I have these three things going on. And I put a little video, and they're like, question mark? They're like, well, I answer your questions. Like, are you, like, I don't know how to, so I'm not going to proceed. You know what I mean? And it works on the other way too. If you have unclear messaging on out, well, it doesn't serve any purpose, and messaging style is also important. Like I said, 2 to 3 lines of text, unless they ask you for details, they ask you for all them bullet points and all that. People don't read novels on LinkedIn. It's like a text. Like, well, some people write long text, but I don't read them. I won't reply to long. If someone writes me a long text, it's like, I just say, I don't read novels. Like, get to the point, I think if you have a longer discussion, that should be face to face. But if I have to take my brain power, because I'm busy during the day, and trying to figure out what the heck you're saying in this long mess, and you're not giving me money, I'm not going to put much effort towards it. It's a normal human thing.
What should leaders fix before they even think about automation or AI?
They need to think about what is valuable to their ICP, their prospects, their partners. What is important to them? And then how do they like to be communicated with, and those type of things. You have to think about the client first. And then the second thing is that how can they provide value to that client? And we talked about that 3-tier value structure. How can I arrange that value structure where it's very digestible and it makes sense to them? So you have to break things down to smaller chunks, and they get to know you over time, and you become familiar. After you become familiar, you become liked, they become comfortable with you in order to move forward.
Where do you see AI generally helping relationship-based outreach today?
I've seen some amazing things. And so they're filling in a lot of gaps that you would typically require a, a repeatable process. The content creation for Skoop is one of those. So it's not really producing everything, but it's helping you structure ideas, you know, and you're still the author, still your tone. The other thing that I've seen are things that are helping for closing book meetings, some AI agents for that. They're pretty good if they're programmed properly, and they help you clarify the booking. And it says, hey, are you open for this booking? And I know you talked with so and so about this. We're open to take a meeting, or does it make sense to have a meeting after this whatever it is that you're talking about? And you say, yes, I'm open for this type of time. So it's more like reservation type stuff. And so a lot of the AI stuff helps out. The problem is that it kind of promotes from the user side a bit of laziness. So they're like most people, most entrepreneurs, and this is sad to say, and I'm not saying all of them, but most of them that I've seen on the lower tier when they're just starting out, um, they don't want to do any work. They want AI to do everything. That's the worst thing you can do, because you're doing opposite of building the relationship. So you got to learn how to use AI and automation as well to help fill in those gaps and promote those things that's valuable to that prospect forward. And if you don't promote it, if you promote something that's not valuable, you know what that's called? It's called spam. You're spamming people. If you send them stuff they don't see as valuable. That's how people perceive it. And so you have to separate yourself from all the other spam out there.
Can you share a real example where AI improves speed without killing authenticity?
Oh yeah, the system, my Nanity program, I have a guide, and your audience is welcome to ask for it, but it's like a 10 or 15 page, forget how long it is, but it breaks down that structure, value structure. It breaks down, hey, how does your profile should look, how to create content. It's really structuring the value. And so it's making it where it's digestible and it makes sense. It's easier to understand, and creating those systems at the right volume. And it's not everything is about super big volume. All the meetings I get are from my one profile. I have no other profile. So imagine that times 10. If I could get 60 meetings in a week, and you have all those things that are all those different channels providing the right type of value at the right rate, and as digestible, you're creating a more of a brand. And so it's no longer who is Troy. It's really about how do I feel about Troy at that moment. And so you're being put in a different place in the market.
Where do most people misuse AI in sales?
Oh my gosh, they use it for evil, not for good. So you talked about spam. They don't know about tolerances. They don't know what's appropriate to reach out to people, or how to reach out to, and when, and how, and when not to. And so they have no brakes on it. They just turn it on and run it off. And so they don't have any context of the actual prospect and how they think and how they move. It's all about them. It's not about us. It's all about them. So let's make it all about them and make them feel like they're a person versus a ticket or a number. People hate that. People hate being put into a system and getting blasted, for stuff that's not relevant to them.
Let's talk about Skoop. Skoop.
Yeah, I misspelled it because it was the only thing available on the domain. I had to get scoopapp.com.
Love it. You said it's helping convert direct conversations into clients at a 6x Great. I
Mhm.
want you to unpack that.
Yeah, we talked about that earlier. It moved my 3% to 21% on single message. And
Amazing.
I'm not talking about the whole system. And I don't probably want to repeat all that other stuff, but personalized video with a little text and titling it on the bottom converts 6 times better. So if I run 3% to 20 over, that's 6x. That's 6 times that can, uh, and someone says 21%. Well, if they don't know any about 21% is a huge number for a vetted book meeting for a single message. And if you have a high value offer, I mean, if you get an extra 10 meetings on top of other meetings, this will take all those away. If you get 10 meetings a week, 40 extra a month, are you telling me you can't close a deal with these people that want to talk to you about what you do? You know, if you can't, then your process is broken somewhere else. You know, so yeah, it's real simple. Video converts better. Video and context converts even more. And so when you're communicating, people want to feel comfortable with the type of communication. They want to feel value. And video does that because it's not AI driven. Well, mine's not AI driven. It's specific to that individual. And some people that are outside the US, they want to automate everything. They say, oh, I just want to automate this and have it where I don't care if the name's quite right and whatever. Well, I mean, sure, you can do that, but then you get what you put out. You know, if you get something that's, I don't want to say a bad word, but if it's, say, crappy, that's a nicer word. If you put a bunch of crappy stuff out there, you get a bunch of crappy clients. That's it. If you want good clients, then you put good stuff out there. And good stuff takes a little bit of effort. And you don't expunge automation. You still have the automated messages or AI messages that come afterwards, but there's certain touch points. And Skoop is really good at that. So if you're in sales, you know, we're going to be talking to companies locally here and to run some pilots and I'll train them. But if you're running sales and you're hitting a wall on LinkedIn, Skoop is a great tool. And my systems are even better. But if you had to start off like just to help bump that conversions and meetings, Skoop is an awesome tool. So Loop does instant video, instant text, animated GIFs, full screen recordings, voice notes and memos. It has a built-in CRM. We're doing integrations to other CRMs pretty soon. We're going to do a go high level integration in the next month and a half. You know, it creates content as well. You're looking at everything that has to do with sales. So sales and relationship. So it's a sales and relationship tool and doesn't get in the way of your current systems. So kind of nerdy, but yeah.
That's fantastic. What problem were you actually trying to solve when you created Scoops?
To separate yourself from all this other spam. So you want to separate you. For example, if I'm obviously I have black hair, right? Well, it's kind of like gray in there now, but so I have dark hair. So if I were a model, I would join. Of course, I'm not as good looking as I used to be 20 years ago, but it would take that idea. If I were a model, I would go to an agency that had blondes because I would be the brunette. So you have to have a distinguishing factor that brings you out. And usually it's your effort. This person's putting a lot of effort and other people don't do anything. You stand out quite a bit. And that's part of that relationship building process. So the people who sell well, they sell the relationship. You know, they build the relationship and they sell the conversion. But you get what I'm saying. It's all about that relationship portion. And if you don't care to build a relationship, then you will not sell high ticket items. You know, low relationships are things like actually Skoop is a low cost software. So I can do that in volume. So a $50 a month decision is not a hard decision, but a $50,000 decision is. And that's where those relationships come in play.
How much is automated Scoop that is? How much manual work do I have to put into using Scoop?
Well, if you're converting on LinkedIn, 30 minutes a day.
30 minutes? Okay.
Yeah, 30 minutes. Yeah. Because
Excellent.
how many connections are you getting in a day? You know, and then if you're replying back to other messages, um, on LinkedIn, you can do that as well. But is it faster? Sometimes faster to do video. Sort of typing all this stuff in. I say, I got this idea and you do video, boom, it's done. You know, depends on the scenario.
But you also said relationships aren't a personality trait, they're a system. So what does that mindset shift unlock for operators?
Well, for operators, it shows the light at the end of the tunnel. It sounds like this is really possible. Like when I have my events, I had that event, I did the conversions. I talk about who I am as a person, my background, and the guest speaker and all that, so they get to know me. But when we get to the business part, we really talk about transformation. So they have to envision, say I make 30,000 a month and I want to make 60,000 a month. Well, what I am selling is not a system so much. I'm selling transformation. So they say, I say, what does it look like moving, even a 15 to 30 or 30 to 60, whatever it is, right? Even let's take 15 to 30, something lower. Well, with 30K, that means I can hire a VA, I can hire a good video team, I can take these things off and I can concentrate on my clients and grow my clients. That's the vision they see. And we already have clients that do conversions a lot higher than that. And so we are not really selling systems, although systems is a big part of it. We're selling transformation. And if they can see the outcome, you don't have to give them all the details, but they see the outcome, you can convert. And so that's what I provide to my customers and clients.
Looking ahead 2 to 3 years, Troy, what will separate teams that build trust at scale from teams that burn out of their markets?
Yeah. One thing is hyper personalization. If they take the time to personalize the engagement and build that relationship, that's it. That's going to be the biggest thing. They'll capture those individuals. And people have short attention span, so you have to put in some effort. So there's different channels even that I don't do. Like, for example, if you have a very high-end client, you want to keep them, right? And so they may be a whiskey drinker. You need to know what they like. You may have to get personal gifts. That's another way of conveying stuff to them, like very personalized gifts, is another way of obtaining or getting attention. That's one channel. So you have to have those right channels. Some could be LinkedIn, some could be email, some could be a magazine that gets sent into them, some could be special gifts, some could be time, and some could be a massage. Here's it goes. Here's a coupon just for our things, and go and get that done. So there's systems that not just provide value, but they show appreciation.
Love it. Let's have a little bit of fun. Rapid fire. One outreach mistake you see everywhere.
Just blasting and creating spam instead of value.
Most overrated sales tactic.
Fear.
One metric every relationship driven team should track.
Well, not just conversion rate, but interest rate. So if they're interested and why they're interested, because a lot of times they won't follow up. And so if they don't follow up, they lose that interest. So I think follow up. Yeah.
How do you track that?
Well, there's lots of different, it depends on the system. That's kind of a Pandora's box. So we'll avoid that answer. But usually has involved with the CRM,
Your CRM.
Yeah.
Got it.
Not my, but any CRM can track a sales funnel.
Best advice you've received about sales or leadership?
Sales or leadership? Yeah, let's go with leadership. I think that in some forms of companies, it's better to dictate, and but there's also a lot of room for improvement because things change. Now, the core doesn't change. You're always providing value, but a lot of times the vehicle that provides that value may change based on preferences. So, for example, LinkedIn messages work really great, and now you have to separate yourself, and video is working a lot better with on that arena. And so you just have to be kind of aware of those things. And the other part is communication. And so when you communicate with your team or you train your team, make sure they understand and they're involved in that process. So when you create an SOP or a training document, have them go through it and have them have the ability to make edits and questions on that. So most people, you just throw them in the fire and they don't know what they're doing. Just because you know what you're doing, they don't have your knowledge base. So there has to be a transfer of knowledge. I don't know the terrible rapid fire answer, but
One thing founders should stop doing immediately.
Worrying about everyone else, what they're doing. Focus on the problem. They're all worried about, hey, I got this competition over here and this one over here. And sometimes your cup's full is full. So fill it with good stuff, the important stuff. I guess the answer would be avoid distractions.
Love that, Troy. Troy, this was a strong conversation for people who want to follow your work, learn more about Troy Agency or Skoop. Where's the best place to find you online?
LinkedIn. So type in Troy Hipolito, Hipolito, and it looks like me. There's another Troy Hipolito. It's actually my brother, but he's full Filipino. So I'm the guy that looks like I'm mixed, My mother's from Switzerland and my father's Filipino. So I guess I'm Swissipino. That used to be my pickup line when I was a lot younger at the bar. I'm the number one Swiss opinion game designer in the world back then. They're like, really? I was like, probably.
That's fantastic. Excellent. Thanks again, Troy, for bringing clarity to a space that's full of noise.
Yeah.
This has been the AI Edge podcast. If you care about building real relationships that convert without burning trust, share this episode with someone on your team. And we'll see you on the next episode. Thank you, Troy.
Thank you. I really appreciate it.